is so many. He's reaching out, he's touching, he wants to be with the people, especially the least fortunate, but he is also going to talk to politicians as well. Let's talk about something else here for a moment. Not just Pope Francis and his message in Philadelphia, but what he signifies as a leader. A very great mind that we often have with us on CNN is Aaron David Miller. He's the Vice President for New Initiatives and Distinguished Scholar for the Woodrow Wilson International Center and author of The End of Greatness. Now, to wit, Professor Miller has a piece that he wrote that Pope Francis shows the greatness that is missing in leadership today.
We've basically emptied it of any real significance because we really can't understand what we can't see. So the R's will claim Ronald Reagan, the D's will look back and go to Jack Kennedy, and before Jack Kennedy, Franklin Roosevelt. All of us should claim Martin Luther King, but we're talking now about leaders who exited the political scene in this city, in my city, 30, 40, 50, 70 years ago. So here comes the Pope against the backdrop of a broken and dysfunctional Congress. And, you know, the polls indicate that Congress rates somewhere south of France and north of NFL replacement refs, a campaign trail that highlights negative attacks and bombastic politics. Here you have a guy who comes along and captivates, actually, the three former capitals of the United States, New York, Philadelphia, and the current capital, Washington. And he does so with an extraordinary, uncommon commonness, a humanity, a compassion, a sense of goodness, and the most important quality, a real sense of authenticity, which is lacking in our political class. But we've transferred our need for greatness from our political class in which we no longer believe to our sports figures and our entertainers, because it's a lot easier to buy a ticket and to appreciate greatness in sports than it is to invest in our politicians. All of this was swirling around in my head as I watched the last several days, which I found to be extraordinary.
And yet, to take Francis at his own word, that it is not always the man, it is often the message. You want the right messenger, but what does he tell us while he's here? Forget about Catholicism, forget about deism or any faith. He says, be better to each other because you are interconnected, you are interdependent, and that is what life is all about. You know, what is his history in terms of how he's regarded leadership versus putting it on people to do for themselves?
Oh, well, I think he believes in both. I mean, government has to help, leaders have to help. We've heard that at the UN, and he believes, for example, that a state should support its unemployed and its poor and so on. But certainly believes also in the individual initiative and the capacity for each person to do better, to reach out, to be a neighbor to their neighbor, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. That's his fundamental preaching, and so I think it's both. And I think in terms of...
I mean, just by evidence, by what you see here, there's something about him that draws people to him. And I think a lot of people don't even know why. They're just kind of unexplained attraction to this man. And I think it's because what you see in Pope Francis is a lived expression of the gospel. And whether we know it or not, we're all attracted to that gospel, attracted to Jesus, who is at the heart. And what we get in Pope Francis is a living expression of that. So I think...
Thank you both so much. I so appreciate it.